Hello, folks, and welcome to tonight's Friday night podcast on Four Lads Had a Dream. I'm joined by one of my regular partners, but reviving a partnership that we had a couple months back when the coined phrase of our 4-2-2 formation was made infamous by Amrit. Let's start with you, mate. How are you, Amrit?
Mate, I'm great. I just want to apologise to everyone. I've been off the scene for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Just work's been mental. This weather is keeps us busy in our industry. So global warming is brilliant for business, I must admit. So keep burning those fossil fuels, people. No electric cars or solar panels, please. Not on my watch. So mate, yeah, I've just been really busy. So thanks to all of you guys and Stevie and the team just for being so patient, because I've wanted to contribute and be part of it, but it's not been possible last 4 weeks. We've just been flat out. So I have been watching and supporting the pod from afar and keeping up to date with everything that's been going on. But it's great to be on a Friday night back with you two. And I mean, I'm not convinced by that hat. I mean, that's like, I don't know, you look like Liam Gallagher's ma with that thing on. I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it is what it is. You can perhaps tell everyone the story as to why you had to put it on, Andrew, because that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I'll just bring up late and why we're late. Is that on Wednesday evening, whilst having a shoot about with some of my mates playing hockey, I took a ball to the head, which split open my head, and I had to get my heads glued back together. So there's no cap as such for today, even though this is really all Andrew Anderson's fault because he's not here. But we're going with the closest thing, my wackiest possible addition, my pink flamingo bucket hat from the Elite League playoffs in ice hockey. So yes, that's why the bucket hat is here. It may get chucked across the room at some point this evening to avoid any more embarrassment. But my usual capped brother, Calvin, mate, how are you?
Good, mate. Bit offended by that hat. I think it's time for it to go already. I know we said different hat this week, but wow. But it's gave us something to talk about because Rangers haven't gave us much since the start of the week, so we'll let you get away with it. I think we need to point out Amrit looks like he's frozen in the stands a wee bit there, so he might need to have a wee second to fix that out. But good to be back. Friday night, brothers, all together. The old screw team is back.
Amrit does what he wants. He's allowed to do what he wants. Evidently, if I wear something evidently brutal, then I hear it from now until the end of the time. Thanks, lads. Much appreciated. Um, I have to say, Calvin did say it right off the start. Very little to talk about in Rangers land this week. How we managed to get our usual shows up, God knows, minus the everything that happened with Lauren Shanklin. Some great stuff. Really, really happy about that and everything that's been coming out since then. But as of now, all quiet on the Rangers front. We're gonna get through tonight's show, have a little chat about the road ahead. Andrew Cavanagh had the piece in the Sun as well. We can discuss. Just looking into the comments for some reassurance. Getting the hat's fine. The fact that it's two sizes too small, that's the issue. But it's my big ched. What can I say? We can't get Harry Maguire at Rangers, where you got me, big slab head. But also, back in Team Apart, I was going to expose my agency that when Team Apart was still a thing, I was probably well young because it's been gone for God knows how long now, and replaced by something in Glasgow Green, which I will not even mention the name of because I despise it so. But moving into football, let's talk Rangers, shall we, lads? Calvin, Andrew Cavanagh, he had a piece in the Sun, and it was more of his regular kind of communications to the support, talking about the season as a whole and where it leaves him as a person, as an owner, and where we go from there. The thing what you can really say about Andrew Cavanagh is always think he speaks so well, and you can tell that it's not like in the way that Todd Bowley takes over a football club and kind of can't be asked to adapt to it and doesn't really want to integrate into what it means to the people and the support. Whereas Andrew Cavanagh is complete opposite. He's always willing to listen. He jumps into the away ends at games. more than happy to talk to fans and give them his time. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a big fan of him as a person, and I think that the future will be better than it is. But what was your kind of take on another piece from the chairman?
I think it's good. We need, as we've said for years, the communication is massive. How many times have we sat there and went, we have no idea what's happening? And like you said, Cavanagh seems to me like a guy that wants to bring success, and he understands that the first year they had all these ideas. It didn't work out the way they wanted. He's accepted his kind of part in that with the appointments of Thelwell, Martin, etc. He's tried everything to change it across. He's gave the backing to Danny Rohl in his own way, and he had to. Like we talked about it last week a wee bit. In terms of Danny Rohl, there'll be a mixture of opinions. Some people want him, some people don't want him, some people think it's going to work, some people don't think it's going to work. But as Cavanagh, as the chairman of the club, he needs to back him and he needs to do it in the right way. And the communication with the fans is massive because it allows us the chance to put our points across to him. He understands the emotion behind it and he uses his own kind of football fan basis with it. And it's one of the big things the 49ers have brought to Rangers. They are willing to listen, and it has brought it in, like they talked about the squad things last week. Transfers, if there's a Scottish-based player, an SPL-based player, we'll go towards them because I think they're starting to understand we're in a basket case of a league, and you need to understand what playing in Scotland is like, playing for Rangers, how much it means to the fans, how much it means to every player that plays against us. So as long as it comes through with these promises, it's massive. And I look forward to seeing what they do. It's going to be a massive summer, as it was last year, and he can't get away with the mistakes that he made last year. And as long as he understands that and develops a team around him, that can help bring that, which we've seen. There's been little bits and pieces coming together. But as we said before, it needs to come very, very quick now. And that's what I'm at with it. There's a lot of talking. It's now time for action and delivering on these promises that they've set us.
Yeah, Amra, it was quoted saying, for us, success is winning the league, and we didn't succeed, period. I think this is exactly what we want. This is the goals that we set for our club as supporters at the start of the season. And as Calvin said, to lean on that, there is a timeline for when that success needs to happen before questions do start to be asked. I mean, we've seen it with the manager last season, Russell Martin, and how little the time he had due to the results that he managed to conjure up with his squad. So the timeline is the thing that, from our point as supporters, is what we need to emphasise on top of the message that he has produced.
Yeah, I think as a fan base, generally speaking, we've given Andrew Cavanagh a lot of grace and allowances based on the fact, a couple of things. First of all, that he's invested heavily in the club and he's put his money where his mouth is. He said he was going to invest in the squad, and he did. He said he wanted to make changes and he's made them. He's had challenging times throughout the last 12 months of his tenureship, and he's taken tough decisions. He's had to get rid of Thelwell, Patrick Stewart, Russell Martin. He's stuck by Rohl now. So he's made some big, decisive changes and decisions. And because he's put money into the club, I think we're willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because you can see from Andrew Cavanagh that this is someone who's come into Rangers later in life. Many of us are born into this. Many of us have got this in our DNA, in our blood, in our bloodline. Father's father, grandfather, all that kind of stuff. And it's very hard to communicate what that means to someone when they come in to the Rangers family in their senior years. You can tell them about it, Andrew. You can speak to them about it. You can try and educate them and show them videos and history and speak about all the echoes of the past. But until they're in it and living it for themselves, it's very difficult to really appreciate what this club means to so many people. And I do believe that he has been bitten by the Rangers bug. I believe his depth of emotion travels the same way that ours does for this club. I genuinely believe that he loves this club and he loves everything about it, and that he only wants the very best for the club. And he said all of that, and I believe it. But as Calvin touched on, and as you touched on, talk is cheap. You can't get away with speaking in mindless business buzzwords and pull the wool over the Rangers fan base. We're not daft. We've seen this story before. We know how it plays out. So we need to see action. And he also acknowledged that himself. He said, listen, these are just words, but I'm going to back up with action. And the first thing he did after that Sunday presser that he did after the Falkirk game, when he called in all of the fan media and had that meeting, the first thing they did was go and get Lawrence Shankland within days and weeks. I mean, that's a sign of intent. So that's a man to me that says, yes, I'm saying all these things, but here's the action. This is the power that we have behind our words. We're going to go out and we're going to make it happen. And we're going to make signings of intent that have impact and that are powerful. And that's what he did. So I've got a lot of faith in their leadership. But this is just one step towards many more to come over the summer. Because just as a final point, let's remember, we spent £40 million last summer. Right. And looking at where we are just now, Andrew, look at the loans that are out there that are coming back or have came back. McCausland, Enciala, Danilo, Cortez is out till December on loan. Then you've got, there's other ones there as well. Who else is there? Cifuentes, and there's a few more. So you think you're probably going to move them on because Danny Rohl doesn't like them. Half a dozen loan players have gone back. So you're up at 12 already. So let's say you were going to only replace those 12 at, I don't know, an average of £3 or £4 million a player in today's market. Say 4 times 12, what's that, 48? You spent 40, let's say as a reserved or tentative amount, it's another 40 million that we spend this summer. That might not be a net spend because we'll get some in probably from players we sell, but you're still spending 40. So in the space of 12 months, potentially you could be looking at our club spending upwards of £80 million. So the fact that we win this league this season is absolutely critical because you don't want to be the club that spent 80 million and won nothing in 24 months because that's potentially what we're looking at happening. So this summer is so crucial to get the right decisions, the right personnel, and the right people making the right decisions with the money. Because last summer, we didn't have the right people who had the autonomy to make decisions about players. We need to make sure this summer we don't make the same mistakes again. So there's a lot on the line. And as people have said in the past, as a final point, if we don't get it right this summer and we don't get it right this coming season, the blame's going to go up the way. It's not going to be on recruitment. It's not going to be on the manager. They're going to be talking about the leadership and the direction of the business. And that's Andrew Cavanagh. And I wouldn't like to see that happen.
Calvin, although as Amrit says, the blame will go higher up the hierarchy. Danny Rohl has already had criticism levelled at him in the post-split run-in. We have seen good parts and bad parts of Rangers under Danny Rohl since his appointment, but with the magnitude of the failures post-split, it does seem to be that it outweighs the positives. And I think when you were at one stage so close to potentially getting over the line and winning the league, you know, it hurts, and it is that extra kind of knife in the gut that you blow it almost, because although the team that was first ended up for the majority of the season didn't end up winning it, it still feels like we had a really credible chance to do it ourselves and we threw it away at our own doing. Some of the kind of ghosts of our past flawed games where we're not concentrating or we aren't incisive enough and we aren't putting teams to bed, making mistakes, cost us in the long run. And that landed at the table of the manager. As Amrit said, there, blame will go up, but how long, and this is the thing, how long does Danny Rohl get before it ends up being a Russell Martin situation again? Because we managed to almost, and you can say a lot of things about how it felt to us, we almost managed to salvage what was an awful season for the club. Language and almost at the bottom of the table. I think with a loss at one point we could have been sitting bottom, tied in goal difference or something along those lines. Looking back, we need to be ruthless with this, because although we need to back him in the summer, if it goes wrong, the support, as we do, will let the club know that, and action will then have to be taken, and that domino effect begins. How is it possible to be the man in charge on the hottest of seats again in Danny Rohl?
But that's his job. It's like something we've talked about before. We knew the manager position at Rangers is massive. And Cavanagh's made the decision that Rohl's his man. We've seen it in the past. People come up as players, managers, and they can end up struggling massively with just dealing with the pressure ball that is Rangers. The problem for Danny Rohl is he did well enough to get us back into that title race. And let's be honest, things still weren't perfect. There was massive results that didn't go our way. Hearts were dropping points very, very quickly. Other side of the city was going through large spells. He's struggling as well. That's where he kind of got himself back in. If things were perfect, like the Livingston results, the results against the top six pre-split, things like that as well, he'd have been a canter, he'd have been flying. But the failures that happened in that spell before that we still got us back in, continued into the split. It's where they kind of deal with two options, right? So if it gets to October and things are a disaster, they either decide he's gone, which means that's another summer that's totally missed, another big bit of budget spent, another set of players built in, another style of play that's brought together, or they go down the Arsenal route where they see it through like Arteta, where they just accept we need to stick with one man. But at Rangers, we know that's not as simple as it is, because it'll get to a certain pressure point where the big hitters need to make that decision really, really quickly. But Danny Rohl needs to understand that it needs to work for the beginning. But there's a full team of them there, the full football department that needs to bring it all in. They needs to get the system right. He needs to get the players that can play that system. But he needs to develop this mentality. He said for weeks and weeks and weeks there isn't a mentality issue in that squad. Of course there is, because they can have their big moments, but they struggle against teams that are below them at times. They struggle in big games to deliver the final end of the result. In general, how many times did we get a good 45 minutes and then other 45 minutes was terrible? That can come down to mentality, because they can't see things through, or they have a fight back, or they show signs of a good mentality that they've fought themselves back in. But at Rangers, you can't fight yourself back in every week. You need to be there for the get-go. Walter always said the first 60 minutes is a battle and then your quality takes over. The first 60 minutes wasn't there on so many occasions, and that needs to change quickly. And that's down to Danny Rohl. It's down to the players that he brings in. It's down to the coaching team. It's down to everybody. The gun can go to anybody at this point. It needs to change quick. They need to develop this group of players that has, if the rumour's true about him demanding leaders, the first one Shanklin. He needs to get more of these players in really, really quickly. We mentioned last week, you need the players that are going to be 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week. We don't have enough of those players. We've got young players that are inconsistent at times, that can't always deliver every single game. We need that core to know they're going to deliver every single week, regardless of the situation. Gerard talked about in one of the podcasts he did with McCoy's before about getting players up for Benfica away and then try to go to Hamilton away. That's going to be the hardest thing to deal with. But the players that come in need to be able to deal with that situation where you're going to need to overperform one week and you're going to need to deliver on the weekend when it comes to playing the league. And it's a hard thing to do, but that's down to us as a club to get that type of mentality in as a group of players and a management team.
Yep. Let's go on to the summer window, because we've talked about Shankland and leaders and the timeline in which the Shankland now seem to appear. We've said it in many words that it needs to be the first of many in the door as well as out the door, as Amrit said previously. We're at a point now where we have burst open the gates of Scottish signings by acquiring the best striker in Scotland by Alan McCoy's statement on TalkSport. Amrit, a lot of talk of players to follow from Scotland. There's been talk of Penrice previously. There's been talk of Elliot Watt. We are at a point where there's defined margins of Scottish signings, though. I think there's been a lot said in many a Twitter post about a Lewis Ferguson return. We still have players here like Conor Barron in those kind of positions, where we've discussed Elliot Watt as well. Where do you see us moving with Scottish players? Because as we've said many times before, the bloodline of good Rangers teams is Scottish players and hard workers that know the club, know the badge, and know what is necessary. But it's also with some we have. I'm kind of leaning on Barron with the two midfielders that have been linked with us. You're going to need to maybe clear out. Because we said mentality, but where does it fall? It's difficult to find a kind of happy medium between bringing in lots of Scottish players but also getting rid of the Scottish players you have, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think the problem is as well for us is that we haven't really been that shrewd in the market and over the last couple of years when we have bought Scottish players in. There's no one really that we've brought in over the last, I can think of over the last 4 or 5 years anyway, that was Scottish, that was homegrown, that we brought through, that really set the world alight. Okay, Barron has played fairly well, gives you a 6 or a 7. Lyle Cameron didn't even get a jump. So you're looking at that. So maybe that's the reason why they're staying away from them. But I've always been an advocate for good quality homegrown talent because they have the heart. And that's important. Like, the thing is, I can forgive people that aren't technically all that good. See if they get stuck in and give me 100%, and I know they're always going to give it. That's enough for me. You can't have 11 players like that. But if you've got 1 or 2 like that and you complement them with technical ability around in the teammates, then for me, that works. But I think we need to go down the direction of trying to get a core of Scottish players of a spine that really understand and that can educate the other players around them. And I think Danny Rowe needs to understand that. But I'm not sure he's necessarily the man to identify those talents. I'm not convinced by Danny Rowe, if I'm honest. I don't want it. I was the first to say I didn't think that they should keep him, but Cavanagh has, and we back him. He's a Rangers manager. As a loyal Rangers fan, I will back him until he gives me a reason not to. And I'll also do the same for the players. But this is so critical to get the recruitment right over the summer, because when the season starts on the 1st of August, Andrew, that's a Saturday. Celtic will be at home because they won the league. Chances are we'll be playing on the Sunday, right? And then that Thursday, we've got a European qualifier. So it means the following week we'll be playing the Sunday. And then the following week, we've got our second leg of a European qualifier, which means we'll be playing on the Sunday again. So what you'll probably find is for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, we're going to be playing catch-up. And we don't do well at catch-up, especially at the start of the season. And we've seen it in seasons that have gone before, where after half a dozen games, we could be 4 or 5 or 6 points behind. And then you've got to go to Celtic Park as well, which will probably be at the end of August. And you could find yourself, God knows where, and out of the league. So Danny Rowe, at this point, is really circling the drain. And the minute he gets something wrong, the knives are going to be out. And we will jump on him and say, this is the wrong appointment. And we'll find ourselves in that same perpetual cycle of going through, here we go again. So everything is on him, and it could go very, very wrong very, very quickly at the beginning of the season for Danny Rowe. So we've got to make sure that we keep using the same word, leaders, but not just leaders that know how to motivate and lead others, but others that lead by example, that have a certain level of competency and that they bring other people up to their standard. Because the problem is with Rangers is that we've been falling to the standard of the weakest person in the team. We need those weak players to rise to the standard of the very best in the team. That's the difference. There needs to be a shift in their mentality, in their framing. We want the players who aren't that great to get better. And we want those who are really good to continue getting better and pulling the rest of them with them. It's been like a race to the bottom in seasons gone by, and that's not good. And you can't build a winning team or build a winning mentality with that type of mindset. So leaders, yes. Scottish core, yes. But it needs to be mixed in with technical ability, but not just technical ability for technical ability's sake, because Asgard has all the technical ability in the world. But if Asgard had Connor Barron's work ethic and you put them together, you have birthed possibly one of the greatest players that this season could see in the SPFL, in my opinion. But because he doesn't have that work ethic, he'll never realise his potential as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion. And then on the other side, you've got someone like Connor Barron, who doesn't have the technical ability, but has the fight, has the heart, has the commitment, and has the desire to want to do well for the club, for his teammates, and for the fans. So we need to find a blend. I don't have the answers, I'll be honest with you. I don't. I think Elliot Watt potentially suits the mould for us. I would like to see someone like that come in because he's good on the ball. I think he knows the league well. I'm a little bit concerned that he's been a little bit obscure. He's 26 now, I think. You've not really seen much of him apart from the last 6 to 8 months. He's come onto the scene a bit more. So there's a bit of a gamble in that respect. It's not someone who's done it consistently at a variety of clubs at a certain high standard. But I think based on what he's shown us this season, he certainly has the attributes that I think could add value to this squad. The boy Graham up at Dundee, I like the look of him. I think he could be one potentially for the future. I think he could come in and do a job from us from the get-go. I'm not necessarily convinced that he'll be a shoe-in starter against Fernandez. For me, I'd like to see someone come in with a bit of experience, maybe a 26, 27, 28-year-old experienced central defender for a couple of reasons. Someone who's been there, who's done it, who's won trophies, who can help nourish Fernandez and can also be a leader and an anchor at the back of that defence for us moving forward, and then use these other players like Luke Graham or maybe John Souttar on occasion if there's nobody else available. That would be my take on it. I'm going to get hated in the comments right now, eh?
You're not the only person that has mentioned Suter earlier in the comments. I did see that going by. Just before we move on, I do have the admin license for the StreamYard platform tonight for four lads, and if I was feeling very, very, very ruthless, that would be getting banned. But I'm not going to do that. It's a Friday. I'm in a good mood for someone that get hit in the head on Wednesday. But continuing on, Calvin, Scottish players, we have, despite our best attempts at kind of dulling down his abilities, we have found a revival in Finlay Curtis, basically off his own back. We should not be taking any credit for that at all, because he has worked so very hard for that. Going away with the World Cup, a lot of talk about a contract extension. He falls into this Scottish quota as well, obviously being in the club. He will definitely be someone that I hope we'll be leaning on next season for more game time to help him develop in-house. Massive shout out to him for his time away at Kelly. Also applause to the coaching staff across there with formerly of our own Neil McCann in charge. But we've seen also at the end of the season, Calvin, a lot of youth focus. I mean, in the last game, Scally and McCallion being on the bench. Also seen a lot of hype about Zebedee Lawson. He had an appearance in the Cup early in the season. Kyle Glasgow also being paraded to the high standards of Rangers youth players. We've seen it so many times before. And interesting about Kyle Glasgow. I think as a player there, can he get picked for the Portuguese unders at his age? Kyle Fernandez, Glasgow as well. That's a cracking middle name. Where can in-house supplement this Scottish quota? Because we've said it so many times. We've seen these European lists being announced, and it gets to like 17, 16, these youngsters who aren't anywhere near getting on to the bench. How can we make them make that step? Because when you do give them game time like Finlay has had, and they've got that grit to take that next step themselves, they can do it. But what can we do as a club to supplement that?
Well, we kind of touched on it last week. There's two options. They need to be in that first team squad as one impact players potentially, somebody that could come in and still make an impact in the game. We've seen it with Curtis. He did start games. He did well. He came off the bench, did well. Well, you had somebody like Antman who was spent a good bit of money on, but then was injured for pretty much nearly the full second half of the season. So Curtis went and played loads, but he probably could have played loads in that team because Scott Wilson underperformed, Gassama underperformed, and Antman wasn't available. So we need to have these players that are ready to go in. But then you look on the other side of it, Curtis had a good loan move. And that needs to be smart with the loan moves, because we've seen it before. We had the B team playing in the Highland, the Lowland League, whatever it was. It wasn't going to work. You're playing against people that are coming to the end, or players that are part-time and they've not got that ability that would see even Championship League One. And that's no slaughtering it. Players do move up the ranks really quickly, but we need players playing against quality every single week and not getting kicked out of the park, because you've seen it with Alex Lowry, one of our best kind of talents coming through. Attitude was questioned, but he had a horrible injury when the B team was 5-6-0 up in the 93rd minute. We need to be careful with that. But if we've got links to clubs like it was Rafe and things like that we set up at the start of last season, if players can go there and get game time, you've seen how it worked for Curtis. He was very good for Kelly for a 6-month spell. He's coming back a better player. You had Leon King, who's sadly leaving the club, went to Ayr and finally found his feet a wee bit. These loan moves need to be smart. They need to be given to teams that are playing attacking football, where they're going to show off what they can do, similar situations with us. And they need to be the right coaches as well. Neil McCann's a very, very good coach that likes to play attacking football. You need to put these players to the right environment where they can develop. We had seen like stuff before, sending players over to Holland and things like that. That's great. They'll learn technical football, but they're not learning about Scottish football as well. Yes, players will thrive in different situations, But that brings it back to, we need to be smart about the loan moves these young players get. And because there isn't such a vast kind of push on like the under-19s league and things like that anymore, the reserve league isn't really there to the same standards it was. It was mostly friendlies. They need to go in and play competitive football, so they've got a chance to play winning football. They need to go there and not play against somebody that's just there to get match fitness. You need players that are fighting for their career, essentially, which is good at that championship, lower end league level for like the SPL and things like that. But like we said, it's all about what they get to do when they're on that loan move. If they're going to go there and sit on the bench, what's the point? They need to go there and play. So it needs to be a better situation with the loan. You head of youth, when that all gets fixed, players get a chance like Curtis to go play football, thrive in the situation, and you trust the person that's looking after them. But the club needs to be much better at doing that, because we've seen it in the past. Players go out, go on loan, and they don't touch a ball. So these needs to be smart situations, but that all comes down to the head of youth when that's finally solved, which Stevie's talked about a few times.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. A name I completely forgot to mention in that last kind of set up to the question, Bailey Rice. There's also been a bit of talk about looking to extend his stay at Ibrox with other teams. Some good names circling him. He does strike me as a player that if he goes to a different nation with a good coach, and he has all the pieces from my time watching him dominating youth games. I mean, his range of passing was superb in some of the games I watched, covering the B team in previous seasons. He's somebody that if they can renew, then he needs to be loaned to the correct place. I mean, these players have got it. He does. I'm certain of it. But we'll move on. Amrit, you in your last point, you discussed leadership. Dan Neil, an infinite rumour mill player in the last while for us. It's been a lot of talk about other teams circling him, and we may have lost out on him, but it seems to all be kind of contradicting stories and not really a clear sign of who's got pole position on him. A player that was captain at Sunderland, obviously with our current club captain leaving, bring in Hearts captain. It's going to be quite a difficult one to foresee who gets the captain's armband next season, but it's the leadership group in general. We've talked about 4 or 5 players during this season who are the leadership group that a portion of blame needs to fall to. We're moulding a new one. Would Dan Neil be a key figure in that group for you?
Well, yeah, you're right. We need to build a new one and we need to start again. I don't know an awful lot about Dan Neil, if I'm honest, but the fact that he was the captain of Sunderland and took them up, and then he went to Ipswich on loan, he captained them and took them up, the laddie must have something about him that 2 managers at 2 different clubs have seen something in him in terms of the way that he carries himself, the way he motivates, the way he leads by example, the standard of play, accountability, all of these attributes and virtues that you want in a captain. 2 managers have seen that in him. So there has to be value in that. I don't know if he's the right mould. I've not even seen him play, if I'm honest, so I don't know enough about him. But it's certainly, judging by the fact that he's captain too, there must be something that he's got. But, you know, if you look at our leadership group, that needs started again. I mean, Jack Butland's not going to be here next year. I don't think he will be. I don't think he should be, if I'm honest. I don't think Jack Butland has a place in Rangers moving forward. I love Jack as a professional. I think he's a great guy. I think he tries his awful best, but we know he's got a clanger in him. And unfortunately, his clangers usually result in us dropping points. And every goalkeeper, every player makes mistakes. We all make mistakes in our daily lives, but the magnitude of his mistakes are just too much for us to have to suffer through, because it could potentially cost us a league. So Jack Butland won't be here, so that's another one of the leadership group gone. So guys like Dan Neil, guys like Lauren Shanklin, who have captained other sides, who can bring that experience into the current core of players, I think is great, because I would love to see a team or a leadership group that has half a dozen captains in it. Yes, there's only one that wears our armband, but I'd like to see half a dozen captains. And in the 90s, you had that. You know, you had any one of them in the 90s. John Brown could have had the armband, Gough, Davy Robertson, Stuart McCall, Durante, Ian Ferguson, Coisty, Haitley. Any one of them could have worn the armband and done a job. You know, Walter Smith said himself, he says, I didn't need to say anything at halftime if we were losing because I had 11 captains in the dressing room telling each other what they should be doing. So if we can develop and cultivate that same type of culture again, where everyone is a leader, where everyone wants to do the best for the club, but they acknowledge that they are working under the direction of one Rangers club captain, but they still have something to add to value to the squad. That's the type of environment you want to create in your dressing room. So if Dan Neil can help cultivate that, then I say get guys like that in. That's the kind of attitude that you want in your team. That's a winning mentality.
Yeah, I think I zoned out partially when you were talking about a list of great football players that, yeah, that wasn't that good. Um, Looking through our squad, I mean, as I said, Daniel mentioned 24, which by some margins is quite experienced by the age of our squad in certain areas. I mean, we've got quite a young forward line. I think the back line is going to need reshaped altogether, so that will change. But you had times again why we played 19-year-old Jade Magoma for as long as we did is a flaw in our recruitment that you left it to him. Sorry, sidetracked, whatever. There you go. It's gone. It's gone. I did mean to do it about 5 minutes ago and I forgot about it. In the midfield, I mean, Daniel, obviously that's where his position is. You have potentially what some people would say is the next captain in Nico Raskin, but his long-term position at the club, Calvin, well, it's unstable at this point in time because he is away to World Cup with Belgium, which puts you in the shop window. So you could be facing a squad without him. It's so difficult to tell from what we have who the next person to wear the armband would be. I mean, I wanted Matondo, guys. I'm sorry, but he's gone. No, I wouldn't actually do that to you. But I would have, if his long term position at the club was secure and there was no intention of him to leave, I think Nico would be the next candidate for the captain's armband. But you don't want to pin your hopes on this revamped group, this fresh start for leadership on somebody who could be gone very soon.
That's it. And the thing we're asking is he's not got long left in his contract. There is a situation where we are going to need to start recouping a lot of money in certain players. If he goes and has a really good World Cup and the right money's there, we need to accept it. The players will have to move on. And the way Kenny ended, you're asking, was he injured, was he not injured? Everybody talks about it. He's had issues with managers in the past. The Russell Martin thing was a joke. He should never have been bombed out the way that he was. And we heard Barry talking about it. He can be a difficult player to manage, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a player demanding to know why he wants to do something, why you want to change his game. And sometimes that's how you get the reaction out of them. Raskin took the armband against Celtic in that game last season, 2 seasons ago, was very, very good. So we know he can do it. But is there maybe something in this squad where they need totally shooking up, where you get a new player comes in and he's the one that's kind of thrusted into that position if they've got the ability to be it, the mentality to be it, and the connection amongst the players. Maybe this squad needs that, where the new players come in, they set the standards just to say things haven't been good enough. We need to raise the level. But then does that disrupt a lot of these players that have been here for a long time? But then if you go on for that, that's the manager's job to say this is why he's the man in charge. And then that's the player's responsibility to respect the player and deliver for them. And it's up to that person that's appointed captain to show why he's the captain over anybody else that's been there for longer. There's so many different variables you can throw into there. There is players that have been handed it before. Butland's been handed it. Sutter's been handed it. I don't think any of them should have it long term. Raskin is an option, but then how long is he going to be at the club? That's where you need to put that in. But I do believe we'll sign somebody in the mould who potentially will come in and be that captain of the team. And I think the squad probably do need it. That's where I'm with it. I'm sick of seeing the same players letting us down and not doing it over a course of 90 minutes, a course of months. I'd have somebody brand new in the building who goes in there and shakes that full dressing room up, and I think they definitely need it. And I think it might be something that can get Danny Rohl a bit of kind of sway with the fans, where he's shown that he's delivering his own decisions and not just following into the path of previous managers.
A Gordian knot of criteria and circumstance. Well, it's going to be a long summer, but I say this after a week of very little from Rangers. But I think as we reach about 40 minutes here, I think we'll wrap it up for what's become a very nice Friday evening. I mean, it didn't look that way before I left work today, but all of a sudden it's looking really nice. So I'll let my two brilliant guests enjoy the rest of the evening, and anyone tuning in at the time to go enjoy your night. But not without thanking them first. First of all, Amrit, buddy, it's been a long time since we've spoken, but thank you again for joining me and bringing back that trademark energy and just overall, just I'm going to say stodginess because it's just driven us into a really good mood this evening.
Oh, mate, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be back on with you too. Really, really fun. And I mean, we are so back, by the way. We are so back. Just you wait and see. Actually, just before I go, right? So this afternoon I was working away and one of the local delivery drivers came in. He had to pick up something from the office and he came in. I was chatting to him and after about a couple of minutes, he says, "You're on Four Lads, aren't you?" I says, yeah, I am. He said, "All right, you've not been on for a while." I said, "I know, I've just been really busy with work and blah, blah, blah." He goes, "Do you know what?" I goes, "What?" He goes, "You had me believing we were going to win that league, right?" And I said, "Mate," I goes, "You've got no idea the amount of hate I've got from people because everyone was like, 'You told us we were going to win the league. You told us we were going to win the league.'" And he goes to me, he goes, "I can just remember you saying on one of the pods that it was a mathematical impossibility that we wouldn't win the league." So to that gentleman, I really, really apologise for giving you so much false hope. But I promise you, next season we'll win the league.
Those bold predictions are about as bad as my bucket hat from this evening. But yeah, thank you for tuning in and joining us, bud. And last but not least, I was going to say capped brother, but the bucket hat's gone, so I can't even say that anymore. I think again, this is a Landry Anderson's fault, Calvin. But thanks for joining me tonight, mate.
Not a problem. I'll keep the cap going strong for us. And I do remember the Amrit for Capo kind of push we had for one period after his rounding speech that night, just after the Celtic game, and what a night it was. Telling you, dressing room next year, anytime Rangers aren't performing, that man needs to be in the dressing room at half time, and he could just take the armband and do it for the stands because he provided a lot more motivation than I seen for a lot of the players and our potential manager at the time. Everybody was all over it. So thanks for coming back in tonight, Amrit. I missed you, my man.
Well, there you go. There you have it. The return of the king, and more of the same from us too, Calvin. It's been a great night. But thank you again, everyone commenting. I said that through gritted teeth of the fact that you slaughtered the hat and you mentioned Matondo and a by light all night. But needs must if you're gonna host this show. But yep, thank you again. Continue to tune into the channel, drop a like, subscribe. Lots more content coming over the off season. As I said, we pulled the short straw today and this week after post Shanklin quietness. But hopefully Rangers will give us more to talk about in the days and weeks ahead. But until next time, thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.